KPPM Radio, 93.5 FM, as we have important discussions about the direction of our city, its future, and the leadership I will bring to the city of Lake Charles as your mayor.
Paid for by the Marshall Simien for Mayor campaign.
KPPM 93.5, Lake Charles community-minded station, 24/7.
The views and opinions of the following program are not owned by 93.5 FM KPPM LP.
All right, friends, we are back here on I Am Encouraged Radio here on 93.5 KPPM, and I am your host, James W. Chavis. All right, and let me just say again, I am so very excited to be with you, and I know that it is, somebody else is also excited because right now I am joined by the candidate who is running for mayor. I'm talking about none other than Mr. Attorney Marshall Simien, and his beautiful wife, Miss Paula, is also here with him on today. And so I let me just say first off, good morning to the both of you. How are y'all doing today?
Doing great.
Good. And so I know we've got a lot to talk about, a lot to get through, and so I won't dilly-dally or delay too much. But before we get started, I do want to remind everybody that it is not too late for you to register to vote. Yes, please make sure you do go out and vote. I know that they have changed a lot of the rules about registering to vote and voter registration drives. So some of the drives we used to do, we've had to kind of change and curtail how we do those. So we do have one of those coming up. However, I do want to encourage you, make sure you are registered to vote. Also, be sure to support this candidate if he aligns with your views. Again, I'm not telling you I'm supporting him or that you should. I'm just saying if he aligns with your views, then be sure to support him. And you can go and check out the website. It is www.simienformayor.com. And so I have that up on screen for all of our Facebook, YouTube viewers, all of that. It's up on the bottom of your screen. That is SIMIENFORMAYOR.com. All right. And so I have to spell it out for some folks because, it's a couple of different ways to spell Simien. And so I wanted to make sure we spelled that out correctly. And then for those who are on social media, you can go to Elect Marshall Simien on Facebook and you can follow him there. Now, we've already said our good mornings and all of that, so let's dive right on into it. As we dive into this, on last week, we started with talking about your qualifications to be mayor, and we ran through several different things. One of the things that I asked you was about your educational background, and you reminded us that you majored in government, and you kind of showed me, and it helped me to understand, I'll say it this way, how learning about government or studying government has helped you to have a broader or better view. I even went home on yesterday, not on yesterday, but that day after that interview last week, and I was sharing with my wife about, the paper that you told us that you wrote about separation of church and state and how your point of view on it, and how I really enjoyed hearing your perspective on that. And so I want to continue to encourage us. If you missed that, it is available on YouTube, Facebook, all those other outlets. But then we also went on and we've talked about how your law practice helped to prepare you to become mayor, and some of the cases and things you had to deal with. And we also talked about your connection with, and please forgive me for not remembering his name, but the veteran,
Pastor Charles Robinson.
Pastor Charles Robinson, and the veterans home that you helped to, get put together and built here in our city. And so, we talked about that. And then we also went a little bit further and talked about your the beginning of your life in public service, being a part of the port board. And we talked about some of the things that you did while you were on the port board. And, when you were asked to be on the port board, and maybe somebody missed this on last week, but I want to reiterate it. The port board, or the Lake Charles port was failing, was on the verge of I would say shut down.
Well, it had gotten a pretty bad accounting, and you know the public, every public entity has to go through an audit, and they went through an audit, and it got a failing audit from the accountant because there was a lot of mismanagement out there. So the governor decided enough is enough. She just dissolved that entire board and reconstituted a new board, and I was one of the 7 that was picked to be on the board.
Absolutely, absolutely, and then we even talked about a little bit about what you all were able to accomplish with rebuilding the port, kind of relocating it, I believe, was done under your jurisdiction.
Well, we basically refocused the way the business was done on the port, on the water side to help the longshoremen with their work, but also on the land side to help subsidize some of the things that they needed to continue to work. So, and we built some pretty big projects. I mean, we built LaBerge Casino, and that seeds turned into $1 billion worth of casino property now with that and the Gold Nugget. I mean, both of those are on port property. We did the LNGs, and now a lot of the LNG, the economic boom that you saw in this area from LNG, the seed of that was planted during the 2 years that I served on the port.
Absolutely. And so, friends, I bring up all of that to tell you that, again, you know, Attorney Marshall Simien, who is running for the position of mayor, he is not new to dealing with large amounts of money, big corporations, or any of those things. As a matter of fact, he has, you know, been in his practice, been able to help secure new businesses, new things, all the things that folks in this area have said they want to see happen in our city. He has helped to do a lot of those things, or even been able to handle it on some scale or another through his career. But your life in public service did not start or finish even with the port board. You went a little bit further, and you even were elected. And I want to make sure I point that out. Sure. You were elected. You weren't appointed by anybody,
right,
other than the people of Lake Charles. You were elected to serve as a city councilman.
Yes.
What district did you serve when you were a city councilman?
District A, which is the oldest part of the city. And I'll give you the background how that came about. You know, I was serving on the port board because my version of public service, giving back to the community, that's my version of public service when I got appointed to the port board. And I told him I could only do 2 years. So at the end of those 2 years, my city councilman at the time, Reverend Sam Talbot, sat down with me and said, look, I'm being called back to the pulpit. Would you consider running for my seat on the city council? And, you know, at the time, I'm like, city council, they deal with like tall grass and a whole bunch of different complaints. I said, I don't think I'm really going to have time to do that. But, you know, with anything else, you go and take a look and evaluate it. So I went and took a look at District A, what District A had. And, you know, District A is the most unique district out of all of them in the city because when you look at it, it starts at Clarence Street where the transit center is. So it has the lakefront, it has the downtown area, it has the I-10 corridor, it has the Highway 171 corridor, and it has the all of North Lake Charles. So, you know, when I went to the port board, I didn't know anything about water, but they said they needed somebody who knew business. But by that time, I went and looked at District A, and they had the beach, they had the Calcasieu River, it had English Bayou, and it had Cauchi Coulee. And that's when you start realizing, you know, when you stay in the Word, that God puts you in a place for a new season. And now here it is. I'm seeing a district that has nothing but water, and now I understand the value of water. So I prayed on it, and I came back and told Pastor Talbot, I said, yeah, I'll go ahead and run for it. So I did. I ran for city council. I remember I won that race by 31 votes. Can you believe that?
Really?
Yeah, it was a very close race.
Wow.
But
okay.
The community was very engaged, that's always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, how many? Well, you served one term or
no, two terms, 8 years.
Okay, so you did 8 years, and so what happened when you were first elected to the city council?
Well, I had all these plans about what I was going to do in the Northern Lake Charles area, because when I looked at District A, District A really is its own city when you think about it. I mean, you've got with the beach, the lakefront, the I-10, the I-171 corridor. You got 2 federal highways. You got the oldest part of the city, and it really was a city. So I had all these plans, but then we got elected and we got sworn in July of 2005.
Okay.
Now, the next month in August, Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, and we all know how devastating that was.
Mm-hmm.
But the next month after that, in September of 2005, Hurricane Rita hit this area.
Yeah.
And our area was devastated. I mean, we took a serious gut punch, so all those plans went out the window. Now it became, okay, now we have to deal with saving human life, getting people back in their homes, saving businesses, basically trying to restore our community. And so at that point, we did a few things that really made a lot of sense. When Rita hit, we had the benefit of knowing about Katrina, so we had a good evacuation for this area. And what we did was we shut down the whole parish for 2 weeks. And basically, everybody was gone. We shut down the parish. We wanted to get the National Guard in to clean up, the electric people come in and start working to restore power without having to deal with any type of interference. But I remember people were really upset and said, look, wait, you can't keep us from our homes. We need to come back. And we were doing a news conference online. And I remember the phones were just lighting up. Everybody was calling and said, we have a right to be back in our homes. And I recall back then, Chief Don Dixon got on the microphone and basically said, I just wanted everybody to know we own the streets. And the phones dried up. Everybody was okay with that. So while we were able to focus on getting the city, the roads cleared, debris picked up, trying to get electricity restored, people wherever they were able to start dealing with their insurance companies and getting their lives back together on that end. And so we started doing that, and then we had one Saturday after those 2 weeks where we had basically a look-see. We opened up the city for that Saturday and let people come back and take a look at everything. And you could see that was a nice, organized, calm about it. People had started making some progress with their insurance and their claims and everything else. So they came in, looked at what they had. You had a lot of people put their refrigerators to the street because a lot of the food obviously had spoiled. They went to see, they saw their contents were secured, and the city was secured. I mean, I recall one time we were in the 911 building, and I was leaving to go back. It was nighttime, and it was amazing. You take for granted that there's light. I mean, there was no light, not even the ambient light in the sky.
Oh yeah.
And I'm driving all through the city, and I didn't know where I was until I actually came across a street sign or a landmark. And just about every few blocks, the police would stop and say, "What, do you have any business on the street?" And we had these, cards that said, "Look, I'm on the city council," so we're able to maneuver and get things done. But it was very, very organized the way we did it.
Right.
And then at the time, the mayor, Randy Roach, he and I took 2 trips because we knew what we were facing. So we went to Baton Rouge. We met with the director of the Division of Administration for the state. And I remember we walked into his office, and he was on the phone, and he was on the phone because Katrina was serious. I mean, they had 3,000 people lost their lives in that hurricane. So,
right.
And he said, "Look, I have the people from Lake Charles coming in. I need to talk to them." And we just told him, "Look, we understand what you're doing. You're dealing with human life. We just want you to let you know that we're here. We're going to come back to you. We're going to come back to you with a plan. We don't want a handout. We're going to come back with a hand up." And we talked to him for a little while, then we left. Then we went to Washington, D.C. The senator at the time, Mary Landrieu, had set us up a meeting with the chair. I think he was chairing the Appropriations Committee at the time, who was ironically Senator then Joe Biden, current president.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we walked in his office and talked to him about what was going on in Southwest Louisiana, and told him, look, same thing. We're going to have a plan. We just want to let you guys know this is where we are. This is the support we expect and everything else. And then we came back and we started putting together a whole bunch of plans. We brought in some planners. We brought in this guy, Andres Duane. Duane does urban planning and design and everything. So they set up a spot on the lakefront, and we had everybody from the community, as they were coming back in, would come in and give their ideas of what they wanted to see in the city. And around that, we wound up structuring a lot of things, not just recovery, but we wanted to get ahead of things. So we put together a $90 million, we put together a bond issue. And the first bond issue was, we didn't want to stand out alone, so we wanted to do a parish-wide bond issue. And you heard a lot of negative reports about, well, this is just a Lake Charles money grab and everything else like that. So I told the mayor, I said, I don't think this is going to work out. We need to just really focus on our area. You know, he said, well, we need to do it with parish-wide. So we went through that, and it failed. And at that point, you know, the thought was, well, we tried, let's move on to something else. But I said, wait, look at these boxes. I said, this thing passed in the city. When we looked at the boxes, 60% of the city supported the bond issue. So we reteed up and came back with a $90 million bond issue and put a lot of projects in. And we were very intentional and strategic, because it wasn't just a matter of putting money out in the streets. We really wanted to start planting seeds for recovery and to grow. So out of the bond issue, and it wound up passing, we wound up doing several seeds. Like, for instance, the downtown area, which I have everything from Clarence Street on in. Well, the downtown area had the Sears building and the Sears Automotive building, and it was just not getting any traction. So we decided to put City Court where the old Sears Automotive building is. Mm-hmm. And if you go out there today, you see that Erdace Apartments have come up, mm-hmm. and that seed is continuing to grow, because now on the Hodges Street side, they're building the Woodring Apartments and everything else. We had some people that were starting to invest in the downtown area, so we said, well, let's do the Ryan Streetscape. We started putting pavers and everything else in Ryan Street, landscaping, and the whole downtown area that had been basically died before started coming back. And you see it today, it's a very robust area.
Yes, sir.
We wanted to start getting people used to the idea of public transportation, so we wanted to build a transit center. So we took the old DMV building, it was an old blue building full of asbestos, and we put the transit center in there. That's on the corner of Ryan and Clarence Street.
Yes, sir.
And we did different things. We put like a fountain up there. We put a pavilion to have entertainment, and we put covered bus barns and everything else, because we wanted people to be able to take public transportation and ride in dignity and take the stigma off of that. So it's a beautiful building now.
It is.
And then we did other seeds, like, for instance, in the northern part, we had an old park, Riverside. It was Fitz and Ryder Park at the time. And I was a little boy. We used to go out there and fish with the older gentlemen, and we talk about life. And, you know, when they didn't want us to know what they were talking about, they would talk in French. Yeah. And I'd go back to my grandmother's house and talk in French, and she was like, where'd you learn that from? But I remember the times that we had out there, because those guys used to be out there fishing, playing dominoes, or what they call dominology. And we were playing, and they would cook sauce pecans every Saturday. We were going out there to get pecans so my grandmother could make pecan candy for us. But we went out there, and these guys would just talk to us. So I wanted to bring that back. So I took the Fitz and Ryder Park and turned it into Riverside Park. That was one of the bond projects. And I remember there was some pushback, because people saying, well, you know, that park had gotten closed because they started finding some dead bodies out there and some stolen cars. And you know, the easy thing was to shut it down. The harder thing was for basically our law enforcement to do their job and go out and patrol and keep that area safe. And so I wanted to put it back, and people said, well, Marshall, you know, that's a mistake. That's just gonna be fine. They're gonna find more dead bodies out there. And that's when I said, have you ever been out there? I said, if you look at the whole park out there, this whole area is created by God. I mean, you know, we live in an area that has a lot of plants, but the plants out there are all made by God. And they do everything that everybody's talking about. They capture carbon and they release oxygen. So, I mean, and if you go out there and can't talk to God, then you need to have a conversation with yourself. Mm-hmm. So we put that park together, and it was, again, we were intentional and strategic the way we did it. So we identified all the wildlife that lived out there. We identified grants. There were grants around the country that supported wildlife sanctuaries and everything else. And we built the park where it would never have to be sustained by the city, that the grants that were available to it would actually sustain that area as a natural area. And we also did not let vehicular traffic go down there on a regular basis, because that's, you know, when you have that, that's when people can do things. So we put a nice walking path and bike path, and put a golf cart tram going through to keep it safe. And that park has won a lot of awards. And now you're seeing the seeds of that park, because there's a development that's coming up right next to the park. You're seeing a lot more energy in the community there. Another thing we did was at the MLK Center. MLK had a playground, but it was right near Fitz and Ryder Road, which it was so far away from the facility itself, it didn't make sense where you're having community gatherings and the children had to come across a parking lot and go near a heavy road. So we built a whole playground system right adjacent to the MLK Center. So now you go out there, you have a lot of events out there, and the children have an enclosed place to play and everything else. So we planted all of those seeds, and the city passed the bond issue overwhelmingly. And we started doing, and this was just in District 8. Now, we had things all over the city. One of the big projects I had was the Enterprise. I wanted to extend Enterprise Boulevard because when people were evacuating, the last people, ironically, to get out of the city were the ones in the northern part of Lake Charles, because I-10 was backed up, Highway 171, the MLK corridor was backed up, and people were just waiting until all that cleared. So it made sense to build a road to extend Enterprise, because Lake Charles at the time had only one true north-south road that went through the city completely, and that was Highway 171, Highway 14.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else dead ends, so we wanted to build Enterprise to come through and open up basically the whole riverfront, because I understood water, and connect to Highway 171. And again, we were strategic about it because that road was going to connect two federal highways. There was a lot of federal highway funds that were going to be used, and we designed it where in cases of emergency, you could contraflow it, where you can flow the traffic out one way or another and open that up. So we started doing all those things, and we started a robust recovery, and we did the bond issue within a year of the hurricane. That was the most interesting thing about it. We just said, look, let's roll. We got gut punch. Let's get up, dust ourselves off, roll up our sleeves, and let's recreate our community.
Wow, and I know about all of those things, but did not know that you were a part of, or even the city councilman who kind of helped steer the area during that time. And so, again, friends, in case you missed that, from the $90 million bond that was passed during right after Hurricane Katrina, and many of you who are here may remember Hurricane Katrina and how it and Rita, rather, how Rita devastated this area. I remember having to get my father from down here, and he was up in North Louisiana with us, and then he was so ready to come back home, and I didn't realize that the reason he couldn't come back home was because y'all had shut things down. But I just remember him being so anxious and ready to come home. But I do remember that when he came home, how easy of a transition it was. And it wasn't how, and I'm not casting any shame or thing on anybody else, but how when we came home after Laura, we had to kind of come home, check on stuff, then leave back out and all that. When my dad came for Rita, he was able to come home and kind of just stay in the area. And so I commend you all for how you all handled everything after Rita. And so again, friends, in case you missed that, through the, he shared with us how they came up or developed the $90 million bond issue, and then how they were able to use that to build our city, in particularly the things that you have seen throughout North Lake Charles, being Riverside Park, being the rebuilding of downtown and the bus depot, and now that same area, they even use it for those of you who go and pay your water bill in person. You can go over there and all that. So that's the same area, same thing that he's referring to. The MLK playground on Fitz and Ryder Road. I think many of you remember how it used to be growing up. I remember we used to pass by it all the time, and where, it, like he said, it was by the street, and then of course you had, now there's like a big little area there where they have storage units and all that and all, but it was separated, and it just didn't make sense. So I like that you guys moved that over there. I've been there recently and seen that work. And then of course,
James, I'm glad you mentioned your dad, because that's, in these when a community goes through these types of adverse events, there's always a two-part component, because when these hurricanes come, they take us all out. They're not distinguishing or anything else. There's a certain mental component to it where, where you lay your head, when you see that devastated, it really takes a lot out of you.
Yes.
The Bible talks about Jeremiah and hope. And that's the one thing that has to be first restored before people can do anything, because without hope, people will have problems in some parish. So we by shutting the parish down, we wanted people to come back, and it wasn't so bad. I can drive down my street. I can get to my house. Some of the major stuff has been removed. Some places had power restored. I saw people out there, literally picking up limbs, raking their yards, and cutting their lawns. So you were seeing beautiful lawns in the middle of all that devastation. And I knew that people were sleeping well at night when they laid their head down.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, friends, again, I just wanted to reiterate some of those things. And also, of course, there was the Enterprise Boulevard extension, which helped to develop a exit route or a evacuation route during Laura and Delta. So those are some of the things that we can point to that you were able to help accomplish during your time in the city council. But let's talk about what is one of the things that you kind of wanted to accomplish before you left out of the office of city council?
Well, for me, I remember when I first got on the city council for District A, one of the first meetings I was advocating for some of the things in the North Lake Charles area. And one of the councilmen who had been there for a very long time, and I remember he was the president of the council at the time, he kind of stopped me, and said, look, I know this is a new councilman to our group, but I just want to remind this councilman that he's a councilman for all of Lake Charles, not just District A. And everybody's looking at me like, okay, man, that's pretty rough. He coming at you like that. And if you know me, I don't get dramatic about that kind of stuff. I'm just very practical about how I look at things. So I just told him I'd really like to remind my very seasoned colleague that the last time I checked, District A was a part of the city of Lake Charles. And so I spent a lot of time, my view is to let everybody know that, look, this community needs to be at the table. My dad told me a long time ago, and people hear me say this all over the place when I'm campaigning, in places like this area, when there's a lot of things that's about to come in, like recovery monies and all that stuff, when you're in the room and everybody's about to eat, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And I wanted to make sure that our community was at the table, our community was not on the menu, or any community was on the menu. I wanted to make sure that everybody was at the table. That's why we did the Duane practice, to get everybody to give their input as to what they wanted to see, how they wanted to see it, and everything else. And so I wanted to show people that there was a beauty and a value in the northern part of Lake Charles. Sometimes the toughest people to see the beauty of where they are, the people that actually live there. So I was going to extend Enterprise Boulevard, and that was going to open up a lot of areas for development, because people were saying we need grocery stores, we need professional offices, we need services, instead of having to travel outside the community to do that. And that was meant to accomplish that. It was an artery to get people in and out, but it's also a major thoroughfare that could open up a lot of beautiful area for development. But I knew that people had to see the vision first. So Riverside Park was actually put there because I knew that if I told people about the water, back then, all that was all industrial areas, you had scrap metal yards, the water didn't exist. But if I could get people to that water where they had a good, peaceful experience with that water, they would understand the vision. And so when we first opened up Riverside Park, I held a Riverside Fall Festival. It was in October. And it was around the time when, it's about to get wintertime. Everybody's about to clam in for the wintertime. So we threw a festival out there. We had food trucks out there. We had jumpy jumps. We had we had music, DJs. We had a cart that was bringing people back and forth. And my dad came out there, and you'd have to know him. He cooked the sauce pecan. When my dad cooks the sauce pecan, he walks around and says, look, if anybody finds my socks, give them back to me, because I know I put my foot in it. So he cooked this sauce, and when we started serving that sauce, I saw everybody on their cell phones. And next thing you know, I got word that was a traffic jam on Fitz and Ryder Road. I mean, everybody came in. But James, it was you saw our community come together. People were having fun. They were bringing their kids, their families, the elders. They were dancing, having a good time, and we just had a wonderful community get together before everybody went and hunkered up for the wintertime. And that was my vision, that you wanted to bring the community to understand the beauty it had, that the rest of the city know, look, we're a part of this community, the city of Lake Charles, because we're one Lake Charles, no matter what. Sometimes the news pieces would just show the bad things and everything else. And, you know, I just wanted people to understand that at the end of the day, God just created one race, you know, the human race. But, you know, if you know God like I do, he has this incredible sense of humor, so he gave us this flavor, Neapolitan. and we have to celebrate that, you know?
Absolutely.
And so and you could see where things were turning around. Even on the interstate, we had put these turnarounds at Enterprise and Curtin Street, because the anticipation was that corridor was going to start generating revenue and being rebuilt too. So I was preparing the entire district and the entire community for prosperity. But I also spent a lot of time explaining to everyone that, look, the I-10 corridor is really an ATM. I mean, the amount of traffic that's passing through this thing and the lack of development was an opportunity that we were wasting, because new money needs to come into this area, because, you know, we can keep recycling the same money, but every place that has new money, you have growth. And I see a city like a human body. So in the human body, wherever you have good blood flow, you have good health, you have life. When things start clogging up and things, that's when you start having problems. So we had a major artery that was nonstop from California to Florida passing through our city. And I wanted to start generating the businesses out there that would get that traffic to stop. And, you know, in my campaign, I put those numbers together because, you know, about 7 years ago, I'd done an analysis using basically conservative numbers. I said, if you had 70,000 cars a day passing through, which I think it's like 80,000, but 70,000 cars a day, that's 25.5 million cars a year that's passing through our city. I said, if you got those cars to stop and just spend 30 days worth of cars to stop and spend, I said, $1,000 over the course of a year, I'll do that anywhere I go and visit. That would generate $2.1 billion. So somebody gave me a call recently and said, Marshall, you still have those videos when you put those numbers out there? I said, yeah. They said, we want you to look at it. And when it got to the 2.1 billion, they said, stop. They said, does that number look familiar to you? I said, well, that's actually the cost they put out of the new I-10 bridge. And they said, Marshall, right, you figured out 7 years ago how to pay for that I-10 bridge every year with no tolls. So my vision was always, look, this area that some people have a problem with, this is the future of the city, because look, if you can generate $2.1 billion every year just off of that one area. I looked at the taxes, you know, the sales taxes are the biggest generator in the biggest revenue source for the city. Between the city and parish taxes, that would have generated $120 million a year. Now, to give you an example, back then the city's budget was $48 million, so you would almost triple the city budget. And so if you activate those kind of corridors, you solve a lot of things. You start getting the services that you want. Those services can fund everything throughout the city. The police, fire, public works people in City Hall that need living wages, now you can start talking about giving them true wages. And that's enough money coming out of that where you can start putting money away for disaster relief, so that when these things happen to us, we're not going hand in hand to Washington every time. We actually have a way to self-sustain ourselves. So that was what I saw back then, and that's what I continue to see right now.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I tell you, you know, it is interesting when you start talking about the profitability, is the way I will call it, of that I-10 corridor, and to understand and know if we were to fully cash in and capture the potential of it, what it would be able to generate and do for our area. That is absolutely tremendous.
And we have two interstates in this city. I mean, between the two of them, I call them ATMs. You know, I'd say just if we pull people off, and you know, people would at that time, people were kind of hesitant about that way of thinking. But if you look at it, that's already happening. The casinos have already made Lake Charles a destination. You go out there, you see nothing but plates from Texas.
Yeah.
So it's not a far fetch to say that, look, if we had something that would make people actually come and visit, we would do well. I give you an example. You know, a lot of people in the community were talking about, well, I'd like to have a shopping center or a grocery store in my neighborhood. Well, I talked to a gentleman when we were doing the LaBerge Casino. They had their CEO, Dan Lee, very good guy in terms of money and understanding everything. And I talked to him about, Dan, why would y'all put that kind of money here? If Texas gets gaming, you know, you're gonna have some issues. He said Texas is not gonna get gaming. They already had done their studies. They knew that. But he said, look, Marsha, he said, he said, you got to understand entertainment. He said, when people travel for a grocery store, shopping, 25, maybe 45 minutes is the most you're going to get. He said, your MSA is not, your metropolitan service area is not that strong in that because of the population. He said, but when you look at entertainment, we look at a 3-hour MSA. People would drive 3 hours. I mean, if you take your kids out, you're driving wherever they have to go. We go to San Antonio, everywhere else all the time. We said 3 hours will get you to New Orleans. It'll get you to Katy, Texas. It'll get you to Shreveport. He said, that's 9 million people. He said, those are East Coast numbers. They can make that work all the time. So I always thought that, you know, part of what we need to do is to leverage ourselves with an entertainment type venue. I mean, we've got all this water, goodness knows. I mean, I love to have a Bass Pro Shop where I can actually jump on a boat and test it out, you know? But entertainment, and then people would come in because they'll drive for that. And then once that new money comes in, if you manage your economy right, every new dollar that comes into your city should circulate about 7 times, they say. But you take the numbers that I just threw out, just I-10. If you took half of that, $1 billion, and let that circulate half of that 3 times, that's $3 billion that's coming into our community. I guarantee you the business people are gonna thrive. The people in the community are gonna thrive. There's gonna be higher paying wages and everything else, because we did there's a study that came out that said that to have a decent living in Lake Charles, that's renting a 2-bedroom apartment that's decent, you would have to earn $20 and I think 33 cents or 17 cents an hour. There's a lot of jobs that aren't paying that. But, you know, if you make the pie big enough and get true living wages, you can reach that point. And when people start having that, and especially if you have entertainment base and hospitality and everything like that, Lake Charles becomes a fun city. It's going to start attracting people. You know, I was talking to the new president at McNeese. He was saying McNeese has had a decline in enrollment for the last 6 years. And I asked him, I said, well, what do the students say that's the cause of that? He said, well, they want a good education. I said, I think you're going to find that the kids want to have a good college experience, you know? If you look at around the state, most of the colleges have a decline in enrollment because LSU is the flagship, and it's been taking in a lot of people post-pandemic because they've been de-emphasizing the ACT. There's only one school that I know of that has not had a decline in enrollment, and that is University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And that's because the city of Lafayette, there's a lot of fun stuff going on out there. A lot
of fun stuff.
And a place for those kids where they have a sense of purpose. We went out to Festival of Acadians. I'd never seen a 7-block long line dance before. That was something to see.
Yeah.
That is something. That's her hometown, so you guys got it going on.
Wow. And I tell you, Miss Paula, I mean, you know, we have had, I still have more questions, but I mean, your husband is so full of knowledge and stuff. And I know you know firsthand, you experience it all the time, but what is your takeaway on today?
What I'd like to tell the people is be patient with him. I know you might have your questions. You want to hear something about platform, but he has so much to tell you about what he's done in collaboration with other people to make this city what you see today. Yes. I don't want you to not hear everything. And I truly believe that at the end of it all, you're gonna see that Marshall Simien Jr., my husband, Attorney Marshall Simien, is the true candidate. I was telling you at the first segment about this paper that he wrote when he was in school at McNeese, getting that degree in government. This is the paper. Yes. This is the paper that we found in 1999 in his mother and dad's home.
It's got a little flavor to it.
Has a little flavor to it. And I'm just gonna read just a couple sentences. He wrote this paper for class, and it was about his aspirations. He was in a government class. And he says, I have taken my LSAT, the admissions test for law school. I'm hoping that I'll be accepted into law school. I hope that I will be able to come back here and practice law, giving something back to my community where I came from. He didn't know that it would be even so much more than that.
Wow.
When we saw that, we knew we had made the right decision to come back. So I just want to say that the sacrifice to come back was dropping everything to start all over again. Hopefully it would have matured to something wonderful. It would be years and years of struggle to get to a point of saying that I'm going to run for mayor of the city of Lake Charles. There's so much more to hear at the end of it all. I can't imagine you not thinking or saying that Marshall Simien Jr. is a true candidate for the position of mayor for the city of Lake Charles, 2025, March 29th, 2025. Stay tuned, be patient.
There you have it. There you have it. I said, Miss Paula, you've said a lot there. And again, friends, like she said, I definitely want to continue to encourage you to be patient as we work our way through this. I did not know there was so much to know and to learn about this candidate. But the more I learned, the more I began to understand his decision to run. And the more I begin to understand and see, without him even talking about it on air, and we haven't had great talks in depth about it, but I begin to understand and see what his plans could be for this city and how he could, again, I'm not endorsing any candidate. I'm just here telling you, what has kind of transpired. And so I want to pick back up next week if you have the availability for me to talk with you a little bit more.
Sure.
And I want to talk about your collaborative efforts, because one thing that has become clear to me is that you don't mind working with other people.
Oh, no.
But I want to talk to you a little bit more about that, and even about how that's transpired into some other boards and things that you kind of served on and have done. So,
James, I gotta say thank you for being patient with me, because it's important. I want to get to the platform. I know people want to hear about the platform, but in order to know where you're going, you have to see where you first come from, and that's the journey. The journey has been there, and it continues.
Absolutely, absolutely. Friends, you can catch this broadcast tonight. It will rebroadcast tonight at 5:15 here on this station, so you can tune in and check it out tonight at 5:15. It also here in about an hour or two will be up on our YouTube channel right now. It is currently on our Facebook page. So I want you to support this station. I want you to check out this candidate. And so if you want to get to know him more, you can find him on social media at Elect Marshall Simien, or that's on social media, but also on the intraweb, on the internet. You can go to Simien for Mayor. That's SIMIEN for Mayor, FOR, Mayor. .com. So please make sure you go out and support this candidate. Let me thank both of y'all again. I really appreciate y'all's time.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And friends, you are tuned in to your award-winning community-minded station, 93.5 KPPM. Keep it locked.
Thank you, baby.
93.5 KPPM.